Welcome back to Tarot and Torch. Today we have the end of the year tarot tag, and this is created by Chanel Days, and this is my first time doing this tag, so I'm very excited to kind of come up with my own version of something that I've seen others create and reflect on. I think this is a great tag because it really does ask us to reflect on how the year has been up until this point, and the decks that really kind of did something for our practice that perhaps we really needed or showed us something about ourselves. Okay, so the first prompt in this tag is the deck you loved using most this year. This is such a hard one. I'm sure it's difficult for everyone to choose their favorite spiritual tool. I feel I used a lot of older decks this year, especially towards the middle to end of the year. But really, I feel that it was the Thoth. This deck just really puts me in the energy that I need, always. It always feels resonant no matter when I am using it, which isn't always the case with decks, as I am a very seasonal kind of person, and I do tend to gravitate towards decks that are more aligned with cycles and seasons, or I just have specific uses for my decks. But the Thoth is one that always feels right. Really, I love everything about it. The feel of the cards is really nice. I don't know enough about the cardstock to tell you why yet, but I love the feel. It's a very soft, glossy, silky kind of feeling, and the weight is not too thin, and the size of the cards as well. I do have the larger size of the Thoth, but other than that, the power of the messages that I get from the Thoth are so visceral and immediate, and pulls me right into a state of consciousness that I need to be in to really do the deeper work. So definitely loved using the Thoth. It really went well with a lot of the esoteric studies that I've been doing as well. And again, there's just nothing like it. Even though it is an older deck, it is the one that I loved using the most this year. Okay, number 2 is the most recent addition to my collection, which would be the Hedge Witch Tarot. And I actually didn't buy very many decks earlier in the year. I saw this one and I felt that it did something a little different than other decks that I own. And so I was very drawn to the images and the art, and this one I think also fits under one of the great card backs tag or prompt. But in any case, I saw this one, and at first I wasn't sure if I was going to buy it, to be honest, because the art style is a little bit almost like cartoonish, and I wasn't sure that I would get along with this deck, but actually it is a very good reader. This deck is also very comforting. It is a great one for the winter, which I realized that I actually neglected to mention it for the winter decks that I use, but it is a wonderful winter tool, as it is very cozy and has these snowy and fall scenes, but it does depict all of the seasons. But this deck, even though it is a newer in my collection. I have been reaching for it more than I suspected that I would. I really do love the magical, fantastical elements of this deck and also that whimsical feeling. So it is perfect for winter, and I will be using it a lot in the winter months. But it does, you can see, have spring and summer depicted as well. But it really gives that cozy Yuletide feeling also, which is really nice to see, as I don't have much of that in my collection. The next prompt is a deck that isn't your usual style, but you're vibing with it. And that is the Lacrimosa Tarot. Now, in this prompt, I don't mean that I don't vibe with the art or aesthetic, because that is something I do vibe with. It's very gothic, and immediately that's what drew me to it. But it's also very heavily filled with religious symbolism. As you can see with the card backings, with the cross, it is very Catholic imagery inspired, but also very irreverent in a way. So I do feel a bit triggered at times with cross imagery and religious depictions because of my upbringing, and that's something I am working actively through, and this deck is actually a tool that I use for that purpose, which is why I ended up purchasing it. But on top of that, this deck is just beautiful. So even though I would not have reached for this deck if it was only religious imagery and it didn't contain all of the skulls and the darker aesthetic. But because it does have those elements, it creates some kind of a healing balance for me. So I do use it, and I do feel connected to it, and it is really helping me to move through some difficult shadow work. But it's also just a delight to use, to look at. I do enjoy the fabrics, the lushness, the depth that this deck offers. It's just gorgeous, very classic, very gothic, and in that way it does match my aesthetic and the art that I like to look at, while also incorporating things that I don't like to look at. And also, just a quick note about the Lacrimosa and what I said about that. It is not that I am anti-religious or anything of that kind. It just has more to do with my particular experience. So I'm not saying that Christianity, religion is bad or anything like that. It is just more my healing process through some trauma, religious trauma that I underwent. Prompt number 4 is favorite deck pairing. So for me, that would be the Tarot of Vampires and the Haunted Manor Oracle. Now, both of these, unfortunately, at the moment are out of print. I don't know if either one is coming back, though I hear that this one, the Tarot of Vampires, usually does. The Haunted Manor Oracle is by Syrian Shadow, and this oracle is so beautiful. I absolutely love this oracle. I truly believe this is my favorite oracle in my collection. And it isn't just because of the art, which of course is stunning, but the way that the oracle is designed is that it takes you through different rooms of a manor and explores the shadow realm kind of there in your psyche. So the beauty of this oracle is that it takes you through different rooms of this manor, which represent different parts of your shadow work. journey. And you can see it, the colors work fairly well with the Tarot of Vampires. Let's see if I can. Okay. The colors work fairly well, even the backs, with the Tarot of Vampires, but also just you could imagine this being such a place that vampires may go to in this manner that they would live in. So it really just adds a really nice layer to the work with both of these decks. There's a lot of depth with working with both of them together. As we can see, even with this 10 of Knives and the feather quill, express yourself. So, you know, you can imagine the pain from the 10 of Swords and using a journal or expressing yourself and through writing to help to kind of cope with what you're going through and understand your feelings. So they work really well together. 8 of Grails, Labyrinth, choose a clear direction. Love this pairing so much. Then we have 7 of Cups and Altar, keep the faith. And when things are uncertain with that 7 of Cups and feeling very frightening or, you know, toxic at times, and then Altar is where you can go to connect with spirituality, your gods, your guides, ritualize what you are experiencing. 8 of Scepters and Black Cat. So we have all of this movement, this energy with the 8 of Wands, communication, and then the Black Cat is this kind of omen of change, seeing through, perhaps clarifying messages. Okay, so you get the beautiful picture that this pairing creates. This has been my go-to during real times of pain and uncertainty in many cases. Number 5 is divination accessories. I don't have very many things that this year that I have picked up for divination purposes. Really, this altar cloth, which actually I should probably be getting a different one for winter, but this one has been my favorite cloth to work with. I love obviously the representation of the Corvid here, but also just the nature, the natural elements, and the moon. It just kind of incorporates a lot of the energies, the seasonal as well as archetypal energies that I work with. Okay. Number 6 is a great card back. I did mention the Hedge Witch already and the Tarot of Vampires already, but the Tarot of Vampires backing, I think, has to be my favorite, only because it has this very romantic feeling to it. There is a poetic feeling to the back with the rose and the thorns. It is very old school, like myself, so there is this kind of nostalgia that I feel around the deck as well, and it just goes so well with most of the decks that I use, so that would be my favorite back. Number 7, deck with a theme you like. I bet you can probably guess. You can probably guess if you've seen my other videos which deck this is going to be. The Gothic Literature Tarot. And I talk about it all the time. Also by Syrian Shadow, which I horribly neglected to tell you also that the Haunted Manor Oracle is by Syrian Shadow too. And just look at these two together as well. It just goes with so many things. Okay, so the Gothic Literature Tarot. Gothic literature being my favorite literature to read, to talk about, to work with in any sense. So the Gothic Literature Tarot is special to me. This is, by the way, I don't think that I have mentioned it, but this is real artwork. Syrian did hire an artist for this project. However, I did find out that there is some AI in the work as well in the background, I believe. But in any case, this deck with the theme of Gothic literature, the characters, it takes you through this this Gothic world setting, and it was a very important energy for me to connect to this year in 2025, which is why I've been thinking about it so much and really talking about it so much and just living it. This energy really started for me a little bit before I even bought this bought this tarot deck, and that was a few years ago now. But it's about our story, our journey, and kind of that descent before you need to come through the other side of pain and really catharsis. So this deck really was there for me during the ups and downs of life and helping me to find strength through a lot of painful past situations that kind of made their way into the present. Most beautiful deck this year is prompt number 8. Again, that's such a hard choice. I would have to say the Void Tarot. The Void Tarot has a beautiful aesthetic. Naturally, it has the very gothic, dark aesthetic, but also it does fit into that gothic world. And I used it with Tarot of Vampires. I used it with the Gothic Tarot and the Haunted Manor because the color scheme is perfect. It takes you right into the abyss. It takes you right into, you could imagine this as Dante's Inferno. You can imagine it as being hell, wherever it is that you associate this kind of energy with, or it could just be a beautiful Gothic manor. It could be the figures are representative of these gorgeous, almost fallen angel figures. And I worked a lot with that kind of motif this year, energetically speaking, and it was just something that was working really well for me that I needed. And also just it is a very beautiful deck when it comes to aesthetics. The color and the shapes of the wings, the figures themselves, very almost like they're almost like Botticelli angels. This card is somewhat hard to kind of see what the figure is doing here. That's one of the only ones I really struggled with, but this deck is very beautiful. This figure, the Queen of Wands in this deck, is so powerful, so sensual, and this really does capture that embodiment of confidence and beauty and independence, which I needed. Okay. Moving on to number 9. Deck you wish existed. Okay, so I don't know if there is one, but why don't we have the Craft tarot deck? The Craft being the movie that came out in the 90s, I believe, with Fairuza Balk as one of the 3 witches, and 4 witches. And that movie was such a cult icon, and I really need someone to make a deck around that, an entire deck around that movie. It was such a jumping off point for many of us from the 90s to really get into magical practice in the first place, and also just a fun and interesting film at the time. So someone out there, maybe we can make that happen. Prompt 10. Which card sums up this year as a whole, or a card whose energy you want to bring in? I would say that this year was very much a death card year for me. I really let a lot of things go and fall away, and also there was this rebirth that happened as well. So there was this kind of acknowledgement that I do not have to be the same as I was before, because I'm not the same as I was before. And there was a lot of transformation happening. Chanel talked about her home being kind of renovated, or something along those lines, and I had the exact same thing. We were out of our house for months, and with 2 children, and myself and my husband in a small space in a hotel, that was very challenging in so many aspects, and it was a lot. And after that, when we came back home, my life changed in many other ways, and I also, things that I had already let go of before, I kind of revived in a very phoenix way, which is why, you know, the death card here works for me as opposed to the Tower, because I'm not really rebuilding something new in a sense, or building something new. I'm more kind of going back to old things and repairing and strengthening the foundations of them. So for me, it was much more about that, and also acknowledging that though I have released and am moving on from things, there is freedom in that, and acceptance. And I knew that there were certain things that needed this kind of attention that I was putting off. Okay. Number 11 is tarot practice reflection. So my tarot practice, I would say I went back to a lot of older cards, as I mentioned, older decks, I should say, and that was a comfort situation, I feel. There was a lot of just classic decks that I needed in my life to work with that felt very comforting during times of chaos and upheaval and change. So I did work a lot with the Thoth. I worked a lot with the Crow Tarot, and of course Tarot of Vampires and the Haunted Manor. So these decks were there for me to kind of give me that comforting familiarity and voice of friendship in many ways, as I went through things that were very hard to bear and uncertain. I journaled more in the middle to the end of the year, in the beginning of the year, I feel I was a little bit distant from my practice, but then made up for that. Okay, and then number 12 says, pull a card for the new year or a deck you want to use next year. So we'll use, let's see. We'll use the Void Tarot to pull a card for 2026. And we have the Hanged Man. So ...2026 may be more of a reflective year, even though I've already been through my Hanged Man year. It may be more reflection is needed for me to continue to see things in a different perspective as things continue to shift and evolve, as there's a lot of integration that happened in 2025 that I'm still processing and need to continue to process. Perspective is powerful and can frame things in a better light as well, keeping things more optimistic and positive. So I just need to release and let things happen the way they need to in order to have a good year and to make sure that the old patterns and behaviors are ending that need to. So this was my end of the year tarot tag. I look forward to watching everyone else's videos and also your responses. Please let me know in the comments if there was any decks that you felt particularly drawn to out of these, or had experiences with, or any thoughts or feelings that you may have around this video in general. And thank you so much for being here and for commenting, liking, subscribing. It really means a lot. And also just hello to all of the new subscribers that have joined in the last month. And I will talk with all of you very, very soon.